Hey folks, I'm Chad. This is the Chad Show OverReactions. This installment, I'm going to be overreacting to probably not too much, um, but I'm going to be reacting to this video from the U.S. Army page on YouTube. It's a short. Unfortunately, I wish it was a full video, but I just got to deal with what I got. As it's titled, this is a sniper from the Ranger Regiment, and according to them, he absolutely smokes this carbine pistol course. Now, judged by uniforms and scenery, this appears to be done at Camp Lejeune or Lejeune if you're in the second Mardiv. This is probably a culmination event, most likely, in a carbine course. And it's a training device, so to speak, that is common in the training world where at the end of the day or the end of the section of training, be it around noon or afternoon training section, where you take what has been learned and practiced, you put it into play, and you measure yourself against a standard and against your classmates, right? And so this is most likely one of these culmination events where they have a stage of fire, a stress shoot, where they put a bunch of shooting problems in front of you, put you on the time, and then see how you do and compare your results, what you put up against everybody else. And that's typically how they determine high shooter or top gun, whatever, in the class. So this is a mixed class. Apparently, it's, as I'm reading this or reading into it a bit, looks like it's a Marine Corps class, probably with like, either SOTG or maybe even with MARSOC, but maybe not. This could be a weapons training battalion type class. But most likely, it's at least SOTG, doing a combat carbine type setup where you got a bunch of grunts out there learning how to be more efficient within close range. And by close range, I'm not talking CQB distances implicitly. I mean within your initial point of convergence of your zero. So think 100 or 50 to 100 yards and in those close range engagements. So here we have two servicemen. We have a Marine holding the timer. We have, I suppose, to be the Ranger standing there at the low ready. He's got looks like an M4 that's equipped. You got the full trick set up of that URGI, that upper receiver group, which is the Geisley rail set up with the Knight's can on it. And he's got a low power variable optic on there. He does have a holster and pistol on. I don't see a leg strap, being that he's a Ranger from the regiment. They have a type specific Safariland setup that incorporates a leg strap to facilitate running without having to feel like you have to hold onto your gun. It keeps the holster from flopping around on that drop extension and beating up your leg. So we'll see that affects his movement. He does have a helmet plate carrier on, so he's running jocked up. If it was real deal stuff that they were doing, he'd probably be wearing a bit more weight on top of what he already has. But I just say that to say he has kit on. He doesn't have all of his kit on, so that will affect real time how he moves. He's not wearing comms gear. He's not carrying whatever mission essential kit in a pack and whatnot. So moving right along, let's get into this. That's a pretty good sized jarhead right next to him. Or he makes that guy look big, or he just makes that guy look small. I'm not certain. He got some crazy perspective that'll throw off your mill relations if you're trying to range him. That's for sure. So let's go. All right. Starting off with the low redder, you're waiting for the beep. Shooter, stand by. Yep. He had to let go of the rifle. He's hanging on to his pistol right there. He's doing what he has to do, right? A couple problems with this when you have to do these trade-offs is now he's just carrying the rifle with his support hand. He's got it balanced and he's pumping you can't run efficiently without pumping your arms. And what's happening with that is here he is running some distance. I'd say it's probably 30 to 40 yards, possibly, from the start point. What it looks like from the edge of that screen. That's a pretty good dash. Get his heart rate up. And he's got his rifle that's not in the fight right now. And if this was like a true competition, you don't ever run around with your rifle like this in a competition. If you're moving with a rifle in your hand, that muzzle has to stay downrange at all times. Well, it's broken range fan already. Now, real time, that's not a penalty. but muzzle awareness is always a thing. Also, running with your kit and you're pumping your arms, not having your firing hand on the gun can become problematic real quick. And I'm not talking about shooting the gun. I'm talking about protecting that selector and trigger. As he's pumping his arms inadvertently as he sprints, I just want you to watch. You can see the buttstock and you'll see the suppressor, the muzzle, swing past him. You can't see it right now, but watch how much movement's on that rifle and consider, I'm not going to grab one right now. I could, but consider how much movement it takes to take a weapon off a safe and to actually fire it. It's literally this and this. That's an inch. It's just an inch of travel, right? But we have kit on, and we have kit on to carry more kit. So think Sharpies, think bungees with boondoggles hanging off of them, think windlasses on tourniquets, floor plates on a magazine, even pull loops on a magazine floor plate. Like there's a lot of stuff on our kit that we tend to have to carry because we need it. And your rifle is on that end, the receivers are kind of floating in free space as you're holding it by the slip ring where it's balanced and you're pumping it. It only takes a couple swings of the gun to take it off safe. And if something finds its way within that trigger or within the trigger guard, within the trigger well, as people like to call it, it doesn't take much under the weight and the inertia of swinging that gun to sweep it off a safe and something to go right on in there on the next pass or the 4 more passes later as it's swinging for something to work its way in there and to touch one off. So that's a real safety concern. Not having that gun locked out when you're running or having a thumb couched on it, holding it in position, can become a real safety issue as you're dashing. Let's see how he approaches this first station. All right, he's dashing into cover. You see this big signboard barricade, and you can tell by just drawing a line because this supersized Marine here is trying to keep up with Mighty Might here. He's leaving him in his dust. You can just draw a line straight across and see that he's aiming for the far point of cover as he's running. And I like that. That's good practice. What that means is that he is moving to cover, but he's doing it within the scope or within the context of I'm getting to a point when I can utilize this cover at distance. I'm not going to stay exposed for 50 yards before getting to my cover. I'm going to dash for 15 or 20 or 25 yards towards cover, but on an angle to get behind cover distance. And now I'm behind protective cover, or at least being obscured from my enemy. Now I can cover the rest of that distance and fix kit, whatnot, and turn that dimmer switch back to get where I need to go. So he's playing the angles game within the scope of competition, and I love seeing that. Now, as he closes on this cover, you can see how his rifle swinging around. He's got in one hand, he's got his dominant hand on his pistol. Like at this point, he needs to commit to one gun and have that gun in the fight. Be it just let the rifle hang and go to the pistol with 2 hands, or even couch that rifle up tight and just get the pistol out on target. But yeah, this is of course on fire. But hey guys, y'all are on the clock here. This is war fighting. This is about lethality. You're approaching cover. You don't own the other side of cover. Get one gun up in the fight. Cover buys us time. We can fix stuff quickly behind cover and get back to processing the problem in front of us downrange. Now, looking downrange, you can see I'm knife handed right here. You can't see what I'm pointing at. I'm sorry. To my left, as you're looking at me, my right, you can see off the left vertical edge of the cover, you can see a small little white target, and that's like what we would also call like a dog target, or it's just a head and shoulder silhouette. That's probably a full E-type silhouette that they've marked or painted to produce different scoring zones, reducing the target size or obscuring half the target. So it's most likely the white is the shootable portion of the target for value. So you can see that little white dot. He's keeping eyes on that threat, working to cover, and he's just going to maintain that angle. I bet you he's maintaining that angle until he loses sight of that threat. He loses the sight of the threat has now lost sight of him, and then he can pick which side he wants to, which he knows where he's going already, but he's just probably course of habit, working his way to cover. I'm talking too much on this, most likely. No apologies. That's why you're listening. He should be throttling back here and start heel braking a little bit and rolling into cover. Oop, there he goes. He does that. Good. And now he picks up his piece of cover. Boom. Now we can't see his threat, most likely. I hope, because he's really hella exposed if he's going at those far left targets you see. Now, he is heavily bladed behind cover. He had time. Oh, look, they got a cone. So they had the cone staged. So you had to, most likely, you had to approach your cover from that cone or within that cone, which is good. That's a training artificiality to actually promote what they want. They want you to approach your cover from straight on. You want to get behind it at a distance and approach it from straight on. Now, when he steps into cover, he blades. And that's not advisable. Not advisable within the context of these are Marines and Rangers on a military range. This is about lethality, about use of cover. That's not a great way to use cover. You can see right here, he's got plate carrier on, right? So you have plate front, plate back. And what we see, just flip that image 180 degrees, and that's what's presented towards the threat. So we're on the clean side of him. So we're on the side of him, not directly facing the threat. So his clean side, what we can see here, my arrow, right? You can see his plate carrier here. Here is the right edge of his plate. And then you have this big cummerbund right here. Big gap, this whole side right here. That's all meaty, fleshy, tender meat. We got our shoulder blade, lats. We got ribs, obliques, and all that. We got our baby back fat right here. All the good tender vittles right here exposed. We'll flip that image. Flip that image. And pretty much his angle he's at, right along that same line where my arrow's at, is where the left edge of his front plate is at. And so we can see here the edge of the white, and you see the framework. That's the edge of cover. Comes straight down. Basically, his front plate is completely behind cover, if not mostly, and it's very oblique. So perspectively, he has less coverage. Same size plate, but through perspective and obliquity, it's now a smaller coverage, a smaller area of coverage. And what is truly exposed is all the sweet meats from the other side of his body. Also, with plates, that reduces the amount of purchase you have for recoil abatement at the shoulder with your buttstock. So you don't have much of a shooting pocket there now, too. He's standing here bladed. If a teammate, whatever, takes fire and backs into him, he's on his heels. And if he gets bumped backwards, he's going to have to take a step back or fall on his back, leaving cover. He's not stable for side-to-side movement relative to cover, lateral movement, that is. So there's multiple technique issues here that quickly, given context of taking fire or under threat, become tactical issues. To pie out further, now he's had to lean further off. I'm talking away from the mic, I'm sorry. But to lean further back around cover in order to pie from left to right, he's having to lean. So as he leans, he's off balance. He's even more on his heels. So anyways, I'm talking on my butt here a little bit, but let's just see how this progresses here. See how he processes it. I think I know how. I think this might be a little bit of gaming here. Honestly, I think he might be gaming it a little bit because he heard that pack timer beep, and right then immediately you default to, all right, don't need this, don't need this, don't need this. I need to go fast, and so that might be why he's at where he's at right now. Let's see how he prosecutes this. Why is my hand floating here? Yeah, you see how much coverage he does not have towards the threat. It is that little short little guy. We can't quite see him yet. Yep, that's who's engaging. So flip that image right here in the corner. What is the threat seeing? No ballistic protection right there. His legs are on line. If he got hit from his right position, bumped by a teammate, or if he just took a hot round, where's he going to drop? Away from cover. If he was actually squared up and facing cover, if he took a hit, most likely he's going to crumple where he's at and fall back where he's still somewhat behind cover. Then it's a matter of just rolling back behind cover, or he can roll himself. But if he's on his ass away from cover, he's fully exposed. And he's in a bad orientation to get him back behind cover to then apply chest seals and, lollipop and all that other stuff, right? But his toes are pointed to the right. I think he might be gaming it a bit. Yep. He's gaming it. So his toes are pointed towards the next firing point. And so he's set up, already prepared to move to the next, and now it's just a matter of stepping off and going straight across. He's probably stay plated there too, honestly. Because nobody's shooting at him. He does face barricade a little bit more. Well, it's strong side of barricade, meaning he's firing off the right side of cover. He's a right-handed shooter, so now he can definitely square up on there, maximize the use of cover, but be fast about it too. His feet are tight together, but he's still moving. Golly, man. My computer's way faster than this. Oh, see what he did there. That's a nice trade-off. He's loading the bipod. I can tell you right now what he's doing. He stepped on the foot or the horizontal board on the ground. So it's an inverted T type stand. He's standing on it to tighten it up to the ground, take some slack out of it so it doesn't rock. And he's loading the barricade using post rest, right? So he's that's his anchoring. He looks like he's still shooting on the same target. His support side foot is more directly behind him, so he's on a tightrope type posture to engage. Not real stable. Once again, gets bumped by a teammate or an indig that's with him. He could also get knocked off balance behind cover. But anyways, that's enough about that. That he's post rest using his foot to weigh it down. I've done it plenty of times. He could still do it and have his left foot more inside of cover. What I would say, see how that toe's pointed out? If he has to pivot to shoot the tall target on the far left, he's not aiming at it. It's like at a 45. But if this dude squirts and he has to track him, just filling him in as the target's moving, he has to move accordingly to keep him in the side picture, right? Or to apply that hold to that lead, right? Well, as he does that, as he tracks, he can't help but bend this knee to do that as he shifts his weight to do it. He's going to pivot on that post rest. And so what happens is your knee's going to bend and it's going to track towards your toes. That's how your knee moves. It always tracks towards your toes unless you're forcibly doing something different. So he has the arch of his foot. His instep is on that board with his toe outboard. Now, gaming it, right? He can still game it and place his foot more directly on the board. If he wasn't standing on the board, the way to do it is you put your foot down just inside of cover with your toe turned inboard towards cover, so that if you do have to traverse and bend and pie out, as that knee bends, your knee tracks towards your toe, which is within cover. As is, if he had to do that, his knee would now telegraph out past cover, exposing his inner thigh, femoral, all of that, right? Yes, a bullet can get to your femoral from the outside too, but get hit on the inner thigh just sounds sucky to start with. Anyways, you can game it and still be tactical about how you do it. Because you could be in a real scenario where you have a piece of loose cover, you're just trying to rest up on that's wiggling, and you might not need to put a foot on the base, but understand, maximize your use of cover. Maximize your use of cover. Just do it the right way to minimize as little target as possible. He's really stable, though. From the hips up, he's super stable. Here he is, a scoot. See how gun's moving around, man? It could be a career ender. A career ender if he had an ND. And that's what a lot of people on the outside that haven't been in that world don't understand. But if you have an ND or an 80 or whatever, eyes are on you at that point. Was it a mechanical malfunction, or were you doing something unsafe that led to it? And so you're running around with your gun waving around the air is not good. I'm trying not to be too hard on him about it, but that's something that if I was even in a classmate, I would tell him. I'd be cool about it. I'd be real cool about it. But I'd be like, hey, bro, awesome, blah blah blah, flowers, laurels, all that. One note, hey, dude, when you're running like that, just point of risk here. It doesn't take much for that selector to get swept off as you're running. So better way to run with your rifle is football technique, or you can actually couch it this way, or give them a couple other options, but just be cognizant of, okay, yeah, your muzzle was not unsafe. It was a little iffy at times. We all have to deal with that, but really the point of risk is the concern is that safety and that trigger rubbing up against your kit as you're running. Now, I say that he might be making sure to hold it out in front of him a whole lot. He is quick though, man. Right? He should be pumping brakes. He does. Good. Okay, he's a little he's short, and looks like he's having to go to the top port. Yeah, he's on the high port. He's on his tippy toes. Look at that. Get it. He's bladed. And I will say this, being bladed does not help him in this situation, in this shooting problem. If he stayed parallel to the barricade with his feet more in line, he could still be standing up and he could load into it. If you're coming in barricade and your center line of body is squared up on it, as you load into it, you're more stable. If you're off axis and trying to load into it, you get more swinging into the barricade because you're off balance. And you're kind of deflecting off the barricade more. So as you're post resting, you'll see a lot more movement. You see less the more perpendicular you are. That center axis being the center bore of the rifle. if you're on one side of the gun trying to do it, it gets hinky. Also, it makes moving between firing positions on a vertical on a VTAC like this, as you're under, slip the gun back and then start it in different firing points. It can incorporate a lot of extra hand job you don't need to deal with, right? There's multiple reasons for that. We'll see how he navigates it here. I'm not making judgments ahead of time at all. I'm just speaking out of turn. I guess at this point we haven't seen him do it. But yeah, he's up on his toes, man. Sometimes you got to do that. Those hits. Drop down to support side kneeling. Got his hits. Oh, and they cut it? Seriously? Dude. Thanks, Army. Well, I guess we just have to trust him that he smoked it. He DNC'd it, did not complete. Yeah. There's a whole lot of techniques. There's not one way to suck the egg. Like, you're given a bunch of tools, you practice them, and you should be well versed in as many as possible. And when you're given a problem set, as far as you can see ahead of you, you should already be thinking 3 steps ahead at least of how I'm going to cross this danger area, I'm going to cross this distance, how I'm going to approach this piece of cover, and how I'm going to work from there. And he was already doing that because he knew where he was going, and he'd already made the decision. I'm just blading. I'm going to get my hits, step across to the next one, get my hits, and then sprint. Because he wasn't intimidated by that distance with that rifle. Like, he wasn't intimidated. He wasn't shooting at 300-400 yards, right? If they had more distance or smaller, more discretionary targets, like tiny targets to hit, like head plates or something, I bet he would have taken up a more stable firing position. He would have sacrificed a little time for more stability and accuracy. But whenever you're a high-level dude, like these guys are, you're a high-level dude, you have a whole lot of stuff you've been shown and been trained to do it, and you are then freed up mentally to pick from the tools that you have to process the problem in front of you, and that's what he's doing here. That's enough on that. I really wish that they hadn't clipped that, but I know they put this up as a short. Maybe if I dig around, I could find the full video and maybe do a real breakdown of it. That'd be kind of cool. Because it's a carbine pistol course. Maybe they have them starting out at 100, running into 50, then to like 35 was what it looked like they were about at, and then maybe from there they force them to transition to pistol at some point and do some pistol work. After all that dashing, now you got to shoot a pistol. That'd be pretty cool. Don't know. Unfortunately, the Army left us with, blue balls. Anywho, thanks again. Check them out. The video's out there on the internet. I'm Chad. This is the Chad Show, OverReactions. Until next time, y'all have a good one. And no, actually make that. Y'all have a great one. Thanks.